We are so glad to have Bradley Havenar this evening talking to us about Jeff Hamilton and his legacy here in Oklahoma City with the Interfaith Alliance and the other work that he's done, and I'm really looking forward to this. Bradley presented this to a symposium in Salt Lake City back in September, and we all wanted him to kind of give it for us. So here we go. And I'll let you hook that on.
Thank you, John. I just need to set down my water. Don't drop the mic till after. Yeah. No. I'm thinking, oh no, what did I do? Thank you. Yeah, it works. Now that I've taken my time, I'm ready. I hope everyone here is having a good evening. Thank you for having me, John, and Disciples First, and friends online, if you're there, hello. So I gave this presentation at the International Sermon Studies Association conference that was held at BYU this year. I previously presented at this conference in Windsor in the UK, as well as in Ireland, in Dublin, and this was an exciting opportunity. I actually didn't plan on submitting a paper this year. I just was going to take the year off, and then I saw the call for papers, and it was about interfaith work in the sermon. And I said, well, I kind of can't take this year off. I have an obligation here. And so I wrote this paper. To start it off, I did give a disclaimer. So I will kind of present this as though you are at the conference, because that's how I wrote it. Good evening, everyone. And before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge my personal connection to Reverend Jeff Hamilton, the subject of this presentation. As his grandson, I have had the unique access to his personal papers and the narratives of those who knew him well. While this connection has enriched my analysis, I have remained and must continue to remain vigilant against potential biases. I assure you that every effort has been made to maintain academic rigor and objectivity in this study. Any questions regarding this, feel free to get my contact information afterwards. This that's right. Slide, no, not yet. I scribbled. This presentation is a journey into the life and legacy of Reverend Jeff Hamilton, a figure who not only played a pivotal role in the interfaith movement in Oklahoma, but also deeply influenced my own understanding of faith and community. Reverend Hamilton's work transcended traditional boundaries, fostering connections among diverse faith communities through what I call sermonic dialogue, a method that combined the traditional elements of preaching with open and inclusive dialogue. Reverend Hamilton's commitment to interfaith dialogue was not merely about coexistence. It was about creating spaces where deep, meaningful interactions could occur. His legacy challenges us to continue to rethink how we engage with people different than us, with different faiths, urging us to move beyond tolerance to genuine understanding and collaboration. Throughout this presentation, I will explore the principles that guided this work, the impact of his efforts, and how his approach can inspire us today to continue building bridges of belief in our own communities. Sweet. This is, if you can see it, this is kind of where we're going to go. I'm not going to read all that off. That skip thing I told you about. In 2018, during a quiet afternoon at an assisted living facility in Midwest City, Oklahoma, Reverend Jeff Hamilton sat with me, a Marine Corps veteran grappling with the physical and mental toll of 14 and a half years of service. Our conversation was sparked by a question that had weighed heavily on my mind. Organized religion and corrupted government are two of the biggest downfalls of humanity, and you were a part of both. How are you okay with that? Without hesitation, Grandpa responded with a firm but gentle conviction. Bradley Wayne, you cannot change it from the outside. I'll never forget it. At that moment, I recognized my grandfather as a subtle agent of change, one who worked within established systems to enact meaningful transformation, wielding words, actions, and love instead of weapons and force. This exchange encapsulated Hamilton's lifelong approach, engaging systems from within to foster transformation. Interfaith dialogue has long been recognized as a crucial element in fostering mutual understanding and cooperation among diverse religious communities. As societies become increasingly pluralistic, the need for meaningful engagement between different faith traditions becomes ever more pressing. As Peter Amarand argues, interfaith dialogue remains essential not only to address the misunderstandings that persist between different faith communities, but also to challenge the discourses that often exclude marginalized voices. This is not just a lofty ideal. It is a practical necessity in a world where religious and cultural misunderstandings can lead to conflict and division. Reverend Hamilton understood this necessity deeply. His approach was not to change things from the outside, but to engage directly, bringing people into the fold of conversation and action. This advice has guided my own journey and frames the essence of Hamilton's approach to interfaith engagement. He believed that true change requires us to be part of the conversation, actively participating and shaping it from within. The thesis of my presentation is that Reverend Hamilton's approach to interfaith engagement, characterized by sermonic dialogue and strategic action within established systems, provides a robust and scalable model for fostering understanding and unity among diverse religious communities. His method of sermonic dialogue, combining the traditional format of sermons with participatory, inclusive discussions, breaks down barriers and opens up new avenues for dialogue that are accessible, engaging, and deeply rooted in the lived experiences of all participants. This approach not only addresses theological differences, but it also engages with broader societal issues, reflecting Hamilton's belief that faith communities must play an active role in addressing the challenges of the world around them. Through this lens, we will explore how Hamilton's work offers a model for interfaith dialogue that goes beyond mere conversation, encouraging actionable steps toward unity and understanding. His legacy challenges us not only to be participants in the dialogue, but also to be catalysts for change, working within our communities to build bridges of belief that connect rather than divide. I shouldn't have did this. There we go. Sermonic dialogue is a term that I developed unknowingly, actually. I'll defer from this. I submitted this paper for acceptance, not knowing that I created a term. So whenever I found out that I got accepted to present, I had to create the definition for this thing. And that was very scary, but it actually was very well taken and accepted, and it's already been used as a citation. So pretty interesting stuff. I do not suggest it, though, unless you're really onto it. Sermonic dialogue is something I developed to describe the unique way that Reverend Hamilton communicated with the world. Though he never used this term himself, it does capture the essence of his approach to interfaith engagement. Sermonic dialogue is defined in this presentation as a distinctive method of communication that transcends religious, political, cultural, and social boundaries by integrating the sermonic elements of narrative, empathy, and reflective discourse. It merges the sermon's traditional focus on moral and spiritual insight with a dialogical format, fostering a dynamic and inclusive space where diverse voices are heard and respected. Reverend Hamilton's style of communication was not about delivering monologues, but about creating spaces where dialogue could flourish. By emphasizing common humanity and shared values, sermonic dialogue facilitates mutual understanding, collaborative problem solving, and community building. It serves as a powerful tool for conflict resolution, interfaith engagement, and social cohesion, encouraging participants to engage openly and thoughtfully across divides. Rooted in the principles of dialogical preaching, sermonic dialogue uniquely bridges the gap between proclamation and conversation. It offers a transformative pathway to deeper connections and a more harmonious world, illustrating how preaching can evolve into a collaborative exchange that respects and uplifts all voices involved. This approach exemplifies how Hamilton's methods went beyond traditional boundaries, inviting all participants to not just listen, but to be heard, valued, and involved in the shared journey of faith and understanding. His legacy challenges us to reimagine the power of dialogue in our own interfaith efforts, encouraging us to adopt practices that build bridges rather than walls. Reverend Hamilton was a bridge builder in every sense of the word. Born in Dallas, Texas in 1934 and raised in Kansas City, Missouri, Hamilton's spiritual journey was shaped by the inclusive ministry of Community Christian Church and the mentorship of Reverend Frank Johnson Pippin. He pursued higher education at Phillips University, followed by an advanced studies at Yale Divinity School, where he was deeply influenced by Professor William A. Muell's teaching on Christian communication. There was plenty of other professors there at Yale that influenced Grandpa as well. I just haven't gotten to all those papers yet. After Yale, Grandpa continued his academic journey with a year at the University of Edinburgh. No, that's not the right. It's yes, in Scotland. That's what I'm enriching his theological and interfaith perspectives. His career as a minister and public servant and interfaith leader was characterized by his commitment to building bridges across religious, cultural, and social divides. His work with the Interfaith Alliance of Oklahoma and his innovative communication style, which this paper terms sermonic dialogue, reflect a distinctive approach that merges the sermonic tradition of moral and spiritual insight with the inclusive and interactive nature of dialogue. After he was done in Scotland and he came back to the United States, eventually he became the chaplain at Bethany College, where he deeply impacted the students and faculty alike with his commitment to faith, community, and interfaith understanding. Following his tenure at Bethany, he became a minister at Hiram Christian Church, just a short drive from Kent State. It was here, during the tragic Kent State massacre, that Jeff's pastoral skills shone brightly as he provided comfort and counsel to students and community members in the wake of the violence, something that would pave the way for a future ministry after the Oklahoma City bombing. His leadership extended beyond the pulpit. As a state representative, Grandpa Jeff was known for his tenacity, famously described by his approach of running scared and running confident, a reflection of his unwavering pursuit of justice and service. His commitment to interfaith engagement led him to help found the Interfaith Alliance of Oklahoma, where he worked tirelessly to foster dialogue and cooperation among different faith communities. His role as a bridge builder is vividly captured by Eboo Patel's Interfaith Leadership, a primer, which uses the metaphor of a bridge held together by the arrangement of its stones. Patel emphasizes that it's not a single stone, but the arch that gives the bridge its strength. A fitting description of Hamilton, who organized and placed each stone of dialogue, understanding, and cooperation among diverse religious communities. His leadership was not about imposing beliefs. It was about creating spaces where every voice was heard. It was valued. His approach to interfaith dialogue was not just about tolerance. It was about genuine engagement. He believed in the potential of sermonic dialogue to build relationships rooted in mutual respect and shared human dignity. It was working. I lost the power. That works. There. I don't know what happened. Okay. In understanding Reverend Hamilton's profound impact on interfaith dialogue, it's essential to first consider the broader historical and theoretical landscapes that shaped his approach. The evolution of interfaith dialogue, particularly in the post-Holocaust era, set a stage for significant shifts in how faith communities engaged with one another. This period marked a crucial turning point where the urgency of reconciliation and mutual understanding became more pronounced. As Ariel highlights, the history of interfaith dialogue is deeply rooted in significant periods of Christian-Jewish relations, which have long demonstrated both the potential and challenges of such engagements. This historical backdrop provides the context and emergence of interfaith initiatives as necessary tools for peace building and societal cohesion. Within this evolving landscape, theoretical frameworks on sermonic literature and public discourse played a pivotal role. Sermonic dialogue, as practiced by Hamilton, draws from these frameworks, integrating elements of narrative, empathy, and reflective discourse to create inclusive, transformative spaces for dialogue. As Mary C. Boyes notes, true interreligious dialogue demands not just good intentions, but a wealth of knowledge about other traditions, which can only be achieved through committed educational efforts. That's pretty good. That describes him really well. This approach not only respects the integrity of each participant's beliefs, but also actively encourages the sharing of diverse perspectives. This is how Grandpa interacted. I inherited his book collection, and I will tell you, there are books about every religion you can think of in this book collection. He truly wanted to know his neighbor, not to change them, not to force them, not to bully them into submission, but to understand them so he could love them better. That's what sermonic dialogue is. It's a way to talk, to communicate with the other that allows them to feel seen, feel heard, respected, and for love to go back and forth. By positioning sermonic dialogue within these historical frameworks, Hamilton's work transcended mere conversation, evolving into a method that fostered genuine connection and understanding among diverse communities. His legacy reminds us that interfaith dialogue is not just about theological exchange, but building bridges of belief that connect people across divides, across realities. I can move through some of this as it is merely academic in nature. In this section, there's a closer look at the literature. There's no literature out there surrounding sermonic dialogue. As I already described, I made it up. But there is literature out there about the sermon and about communicating through that. So we'll look into some of that. It starts really post-World War II in the efforts to promote reconciliation and mutual understanding among diverse faith communities. Scholars like Amarand and Ariel have detailed historical evolution of interfaith dialogue, emphasizing its role in bridging divides and challenging exclusionary narratives. Existing literature highlights the importance of these dialogues in fostering not only tolerance, but also deeper engagement across religious lines. However, much of this research often focuses on high-level institutional and theological discussions, sometimes neglecting the grassroots community-based efforts that are essential for real-world impact. And I'll promise you, the big, high-level institutional theological discussions aren't working. They're not working. We have to have community discussions. We have to have discussions in small groups of people that are actually interacting with each other. The institutions aren't doing anything. Sermonic literature, on the other hand, has traditionally served as a powerful tool for interreligious engagement. But this potential remains largely underexplored in current academic work. Gaps in the literature. This is where Reverend Hamilton's concept of sermonic dialogue comes into play, addressing several critical gaps in their literature. First, while existing research on interfaith dialogue often covers extensively the importance of conversation and mutual respect, it often overlooks the role of narrative and personal storytelling. These are key elements of sermonic discourse, and they foster genuine connections. Hamilton's approach uniquely integrates these elements, creating a space where dialogue is not just about theological or philosophical exchanges. It's also about sharing the personal journeys and the lived experiences. Moreover, the literature often lacks a comprehensive exploration of how sermonic methods can be adapted for interfaith settings. Hamilton's sermonic dialogue bridges this gap by demonstrating how sermonic tradition can evolve to include multiple faith perspectives, thus transforming the sermon from a monologue into a rich, participatory dialogue. As Meyer argues, moving beyond mere tolerance to critical engagement is crucial for meaningful interfaith work. Hamilton's approach exemplifies this shift, making it not just about coexistence, but about active, empathetic engagement with others. Finally, one of the most distinctive features of Hamilton's approach is this emphasis on personal narratives. Personal stories and experiences play a critical role in sermonic dialogue as they allow participants to connect on a human level, beyond doctrinal differences. This is the focus on the narrative. It's a powerful response to the often abstract nature of interfaith discourse in existing literature. By centering on the individual stories within the broader interfaith movement, Hamilton's method brings a deeply personal dimension to public discourse, making it more accessible and relatable. Reverend Hamilton's methodologies, which incorporate these personal narratives, provide a more nuanced understanding of the impact of interfaith dialogue. As noted by Rabbi Abby Jacobson, he created safe spaces, not by declaring them safe, but by bringing okayness with him wherever he went. He just projected that okayness, and it framed the way we all acted. This approach highlights the transformative power of personal presence and relational authenticity in interfaith engagement, setting Hamilton's work apart from more conventional approaches that may lack this personal touch. In this section, I'll outline the methodology quickly. This research involved a multifaceted approach, combining qualitative and archival methods to provide a comprehensive understanding of Hamilton's legacy. The primary data for this research included an extensive collection of Reverend Hamilton's sermons, personal papers, and public records. By examining his sermons, I gained insight into how he utilized sermonic dialogue to foster interfaith connections. His personal papers, which included letters, journal entries, and unpublished writings, offered a more intimate view of his thought process and the evolution of his interfaith philosophy. Analyzing these documents allowed me to trace the development of Hamilton's methodologies and understand the context in which he operated. The public records, including his work with the Interfaith Alliance of Oklahoma and his time as a state representative, provided a broader perspective on how the interfaith efforts extended beyond the pulpit into public life, influencing policy and community relations. This analysis highlighted how Hamilton's work was not confined to a traditional religious setting, but it permeated through various aspects of civic engagement. To complement the analysis, I conducted interviews with key religious leaders who worked closely with Hamilton, including Imam Ahmad Chazi and Rabbi Abby Jacobson. These interviews provided a valuable firsthand accounts of Hamilton's influence on interfaith dialogue. Imam Chazi spoke of Hamilton's commitment to bridging divides, noting interfaith dialogue humanizes the other. The moment you sit down with somebody and speak with them on a regular basis, it humanizes the other. This sentiment reflects Hamilton's belief in the power of personal interaction to transform relationships and dismantle prejudices. Rabbi Jacobson reflects further, illustrated Hamilton's inclusive approach, describing how he insisted on involving people from all faiths, even those considered the weirdest religions possible. Those were her words. To ensure that everyone had a seat at the table. She told me how he invited Wiccans and the atheists, because the Interfaith Alliance, that's part of it. But we weren't doing that here, and so he tried to bring them to the table. Finally, the ethical considerations were paramount. I'm his grandson. I've stated that. That's my ethical consideration. I don't want to have to get... Okay. Reverend Hamilton's approach to interfaith dialogue was distinguished by his hands-on, empathetic engagement with diverse communities. His methodology went beyond merely talking about interfaith cooperation. He actively embodied the principles that he preached, making meaningful connections through personal interaction and community involvement. One of the defining characteristics of Reverend Hamilton's approach was his commitment to hands-on engagement. He didn't just advocate for interfaith dialogue from the sidelines. He immersed himself in the communities that he served. For instance, as Imam Ahmad Chazi noted, Hamilton was known to regularly attend Friday evening services at the mosque. He was trying to woo the imam to join the interfaith community, but he also had a desire to know what it was to pray on Friday evenings to God in that way. Because of this, he actively embodied the principles that he preached, making meaningful connections in various communities. The imam did say that was quite unusual for someone outside of the Muslim faith. And the active presence was more than symbolic. It demonstrated a genuine effort to understand and connect with others on their terms, fostering an environment of mutual respect and trust. Hamilton's vision to build beautiful interfaith community where all could feel seen, heard, and valued. He believed that creating a shared space where individuals from different faiths could come together was essential for breaking down barriers and cultivating understanding. His efforts at the Interfaith Alliance of Oklahoma exemplified this as he worked tirelessly to include voices from all corners of the religious spectrum. Hamilton's approach was also deeply rooted in creating safe spaces for dialogue and inclusivity. He understood that interfaith dialogue could only be productive if participants felt secure and respected. I already described how he brought okayness with him, but he did. He made people feel good to say what needed to be said, that they were safe and they were going to be heard. He was a strategic thinker, and he skillfully used existing power structures to advance and empower the interfaith community. Rather than operating on the fringes, he worked within established systems to create change from the inside, whether through his role as a state representative or his leadership within religious institutions. Hamilton leveraged his positions to advocate for policies and initiatives that supported interfaith cooperation and religious justice. This approach aligns with his advice to me. You cannot change it from the outside. By engaging directly within power structures, Hamilton not only amplified the voices of the marginalized communities, he also ensured that the interfaith dialogue was recognized as a vital component to societal progress. His approach to interfaith dialogue was a powerful blend of empathy, inclusivity, and strategic action. His legacy reminds us that true interfaith engagement requires more than just words. It demands active participation, a commitment to inclusivity, and the courage to use your influence to make a difference. There we go. Yay. I got more pictures, yeah. So in the top left picture, he is receiving an award at the Sikh community. In the top right photo, he is giving a prayer and leading an evening at the synagogue, the Emmanuel Synagogue, for the Interfaith Alliance. They gathered there. In the bottom left picture, you'll see him with the National Interfaith Alliance president, who was retiring at the time, and they were buddies. And in the bottom right, you'll see it's 2014. He received an International Peace Award, and that's the presentation in the picture. His philosophy extended beyond the pulpit into active community engagement. I talked about his services following the Oklahoma City bombing, where they could gather in mourning and solidarity, recover. Hamilton's commitment to inclusivity also led him to engage in dialogue with groups that were often marginalized, including the LGBTQ plus community, as well as all the different religious minorities. He believed in the importance of not just talking about inclusivity, but actively practicing it by involving diverse voices in the conversation. As with any groundbreaking approach, Reverend Hamilton's method of sermonic dialogue faced significant challenges. These challenges highlight the resistance and opposition that can arise when pushing the boundaries of established norms, particularly in the realms of religion and public discourse. I'll go off script. So Grandpa Jeff, his freshman year in the House, he did something that no other representative in the whole country did. He brought AIDS education to the elementary school level so that we could educate our youth about AIDS epidemic. Because of this, he was brought on to the Christian AIDS Network board. In this letter, you can see, if you could read it, it's from Mike Hawkins, the director of Christian AIDS Network, and he was removed from the advisory board due to his outspoken views on controversial issues such as abortion and pastoral counseling, and that conflicted with the ministry's stance. So his inclusivity has repercussions. But this is the tension that often exists between traditional religious institutions and more inclusive, progressive approaches to faith and interfaith dialogue. Public backlash was another challenge that Hamilton encountered. Letters to the editor in publications like The Oklahoman criticized his interfaith initiatives, portraying him as out of touch with reality and labeling his calls for civility and dignity as naive in the face of global threats like terrorism. For instance, a woman named Vicki Dawn and others expressed a strong disdain for Hamilton's approach, arguing that his emphasis on dialogue and understanding was ineffective against what they perceived as existential threats from other cultures and religions. Those letters underscore the broader societal resistance to the ideals of interfaith dialogue, especially when they clash with deeply ingrained fears and prejudices. Lastly, Hamilton also faced threats of violence. a grim reminder of the risks that accompany the pursuit of peace and understanding in a polarized world. His willingness to engage with all sides, regardless of controversy, often placed him in direct opposition to those who viewed his work as a threat to their beliefs or their way of life. Despite these challenges, Hamilton's commitment to sermonic dialogue did not waver. His resilience in the face of public outcry and personal risk serves as a powerful testament to the importance of standing firm in your convictions, especially when advocating for the inclusion and recognition of marginalized voices. Hamilton's journey teaches us that the path of dialogue is not easy and often fraught with resistance. Yet it is precisely these challenges that underscore the need for continued efforts to build bridges across divides. As we reflect on these obstacles, let us also remember that the progress in interfaith dialogue often comes through perseverance and the courage to engage, even when the road is tough. Reverend Hamilton's legacy continues to resonate. This is an event flyer. This is something that was started while he was there and a part of it. The Amazing Faiths events where everyone comes together once a quarter and they go to a place of worship and have dinner together and dialogue, and they worship together. They see each other. This is something that still continues to this day. Yes. Oh man, that's a good. Future directions, yeah, all right. Looking ahead, potential applications of Hamilton's methodologies are vast. As global challenges such as religious intolerance, political polarization, social fragmentation, and human annihilation continue to pose threats to community cohesion, the need for innovative and inclusive dialogue approaches like sermonic dialogue become even more critical. Hamilton's legacy encouraged us to not only continue these conversations, but expand them into new contexts, addressing pressing issues such as climate change, racial justice, and human rights from an interfaith perspective. His work reminds us that the power of dialogue lies not just in the words we share, but in the connections that we build, the actions that we inspire. In conclusion, Reverend Hamilton's contributions to the interfaith movement go far beyond his lifetime. His innovative approach to dialogue, his unwavering commitment to inclusivity, and his visionary leadership continue to shape the way we engage with one another across religious and cultural lines. As we carry his legacy forward, let us be inspired to apply the principles of sermonic dialogue in our own efforts to build bridges of belief, both within our communities and beyond. To conclude, I would like to share this poem. It's titled 14. I've been looking to reason why this number 14 is the title. I think the author just used numbers to title their poems. I'm very disappointed in this outcome. Jeffrey N. Brown is the author of this poem, and I found it in my grandfather's things in a book from Bethany College. It is the book that they publish every year with their literature reviews. A student wrote this about my grandfather, and I thought how wonderfully it applied to this situation, so I wanted to share it. This poem, it reflects his dedication to dialogue, his commitment to building bridges, and his belief in the transformative power of words. You are going from us, that is, you are going somewhere else to do what you have done here. Only what you do there will be better than what you have done here, because you have learned why you do what you do with us. You are going from us. That is, you are going somewhere else not because you have finished here, your work could never be finished here, but rather you are doing what you must do for yourself and for others. You are going from us. That is, you are going somewhere else to sit in on another group, which is playing a number, which will soon be your song, only you will jazz it up and play it the way you think he likes it. No sing-song your song, so blow that horn sweet and clear, sometimes not so sweet, improvising on his chords, so that on the seventh day you will go from us. That is, go somewhere else. Hamilton's work reminds us that even in a divided world, connection is possible. Through sermonic dialogue, we can create spaces where differences are celebrated and every voice is valued. His legacy challenges us to carry this work forward, building bridges of belief and understanding in our communities. If you're actually interested, that link, if you scan that barcode, it will take you to a library of sources that I used for this project. The sources that were his personal papers are digitized and scanned into this library. There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah, that's the end of the presentation. But before I let anyone else talk, I have to say, through this process was really tough. I've written a lot of papers, and I presented quite a few presentations at academic conferences, but writing a paper about Grandpa Jeff was hard because he did a lot. He did so much. He set in motion something that we can all continue, every single one of us. All we have to do is make a place in our space to hear somebody else. I think when it comes down to this, we could say that's what sermonic dialogue essentially is. I'm going to be here for you when you need me in this space, how you need to be. It's not my decision. You can just be here. And so I challenge all of us as we move forward to just keep that in mind as we interact with different folks. Because every day, every one of us comes into contact with somebody that we probably would never hear, see, listen to, respect. Maybe we should give them some space. Thank you.